I paid for half the wedding, only to be told the photos are only for the young people. So, I made sure. There was no honeymoon. Don't forget to subscribe and comment where you're watching from. I felt the tremor in my right hand as I sorted through financial statements. Quickly, I slipped it beneath the desk, pressing against my silk pants until the shaking subsided. Early Parkinson's my secret. "Mom, we're here," Thomas called from the dining room. I tucked the folder marked Richard International Correspondence into my drawer. My ex-husband's ghost could wait. Sunday dinner had become a battleground of veiled ambitions. Thomas, my eldest at 47, sat opposite me. Rebecca, 44, tapped manicured nails against her water glass. Both were executives at Wright Interiors, the design company I'd built after Richard abandoned us with 3 small children and mountains of debt. "I have news!" Amber burst in, my 32-year-old daughter still playing the free spirit. "Seth proposed." She thrust her hand forward, diamond gleaming. "Congratulations," I said, ignoring Thomas and Rebecca's exchanged glances. Seth Miller was a 36-year-old history teacher with limited ambition. "We're thinking June. Nothing too extravagant." "I'll handle half the expenses," I offered, watching Thomas calculate what this might cost the company. "That's generous," Amber replied, her enthusiasm not reaching her eyes. "Though you don't need to trouble yourself with details." "Nonsense. I want to be involved." Annoyance flashed across her face. After dessert, Amber excused herself. I picked up her abandoned phone, intending to return it, when a message illuminated the screen. The old woman offered to pay for half. "This will be easier than we thought." Another appeared below. "Don't worry about the budget. The old bat won't question anything as long as she keeps feeling included." My fingers tightened around the phone. I carefully replaced it and returned to my office, pulling out Richard's folder postcards from across Europe sent to our children over decades. I studied them with new eyes, noting postmarks and dates. If I needed allies against my own flesh and blood, perhaps I should look to the ghost of my past. "Is that what you're wearing, Mom?" Amber didn't hide her disapproval as I entered the restaurant. 6 flights of stairs had left me winded, my tremor more pronounced despite doubling my medication. "The elevator was out of order," I explained, taking the seat furthest from everyone. No one had mentioned this was a 6th-floor venue with no elevator when the last-minute invitation came. "Such a shame," Diane Miller, Seth's mother, cooed with poisonous sympathy. At 55, she was 20 years my junior, a fact Seth had casually emphasized before. "Eleanor, we've already selected the appetizers," Seth informed me. "Hope you don't mind, we know you're busy with the company." I nodded pleasantly, noting how they'd created a narrative that I was simultaneously too important to be bothered with details and too feeble to make decisions. "I was thinking of wearing navy blue to the ceremony," I said. "Mom, please. Navy is so—" "Funeral," Amber replied. "Don't you want something more lively?" "I don't want to look like I'm trying too hard. Or like a corpse," she muttered. "Just loud enough for me to hear." That night, I found my Parkinson's medication in the trash, replaced with similar-looking vitamins. When I confronted Amber, she denied involvement and suggested perhaps I was confused because of age. Later, I checked her laptop while she was out. Her search history revealed multiple queries: early dementia symptoms, how fast does Parkinson's affect the brain, legal guardianship of elderly parent. From my closet safe, I retrieved a notebook and began documenting everything. My phone rang. "Thomas. Mom, I'm concerned about these wedding expenses. The budget Amber submitted is excessive." "She deserves a beautiful wedding," I replied, testing him. "Are you sure you're thinking clearly about this? It's nearly triple what we spent on Rebecca's wedding." "Are you questioning my judgment, Thomas?" After hanging up, I stared at my reflection. The woman looking back had survived her husband's betrayal 40 years ago. She'd built an empire while raising 3 children alone. I reached for the phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. "Jackson? It's Eleanor Wright. I need your services again." Discreetly. "It's a historic property in Westbrook Heights," Seth explained, projecting photos of a Victorian mansion onto my living room wall. 4 bedrooms, original woodwork throughout. "And how much are they asking?" I inquired. Though I already knew properties there started at $3 million. "We were hoping you might consider it an investment," Amber said carefully, "for the family's future." "I see. And your teaching salary will cover the taxes and maintenance?" I asked Seth. "Well, we thought that I would handle those expenses as well." Later that week, I met former Detective Jackson Monroe in a distant coffee shop. Seth Miller isn't who he claims to be, Jackson said, sliding a folder across the table. Thanks to my connections with fraud investigators across several states, I've discovered his real name is Samuel Miller. He's targeted wealthy families before twice that I can confirm. Gets close to a family member, pushes for marriage, extracts assets, then disappears. I examined photos of Seth with 2 different women, both resembling Amber in vulnerability. What about my children? I asked. My team has been thorough, Jackson replied. Thomas has a gambling problem. He's been siphoning company funds for 3 years. He produced bank statements showing irregular transfers. And Rebecca is being blackmailed. By whom? By Thomas. She had an affair with a major client. Thomas has evidence. I absorbed this silently, decades of business negotiations keeping my expression neutral despite the knife twisting in my chest. What about Richard? I asked finally. Still in Zurich. Working as a financial consultant. He's been sick cancer. That evening, I found Rebecca alone in the conference room, hastily wiping tears. Is everything all right? I asked. Of course, just tired. Her hands trembled as she gathered papers. Rebecca, if someone is pressuring you, please, Mom, she whispered, panic in her eyes. I can't talk about this. Thomas has... It would ruin everything. Back home, I examined Richard's most recent postcard. The message was innocuous, but the back contained a phone number I'd never called. I stared at it for a long moment, then picked up my phone. After 3 rings, 3, a voice answered. Allo? Richard, it's Eleanor. I believe we need to talk. I'm sorry, Mrs. Wright, but your name has been removed from the guest list. The wedding planner couldn't meet my eyes. Ms. Amber was very specific about keeping the wedding youthful and contemporary. I scanned the list, and 20 of my oldest friends and business associates had been eliminated. I see, I said. And who's paying for these contemporary guests? The planner flushed. I'm not privy to financial arrangements. Amber swept in. Mom, I didn't expect you today. Clearly, I was just learning about the revised guest list. We needed to make room for people who'll actually enjoy the celebration, she said dismissively. Your friends would be bored. My friends who built multi-million-dollar companies would be bored by your DJ? This is why I didn't consult you, Amber snapped. You always make everything about business. This is my day. Funded by my business, I reminded her. And since I've agreed to cover more than just my promised half to ensure quality, I have final say on all arrangements. Amber paled slightly, recognizing the threat in my calm declaration. Later, I met with my neurologist, bringing a sample of the tampered medication. This is disturbing, she said. The substitution could have accelerated your symptoms considerably. I need documentation, I told her. Medical proof of tampering and confirmation of my mental competence. As I left, my phone rang Martin Reynolds, my former accountant. Eleanor, there's something wrong with the company financials. Large transfers to offshore accounts over the past 4 months. How much? Nearly 7 million. These signatures look like yours, but they're forgeries, I finished. Can you trace the destinations? That afternoon, I approached the bakery for cake tasting. Inside, Amber, Seth, and Diane were already sampling flavors. Mom, we didn't think you'd make it, Amber said with manufactured cheerfulness. I felt the tremor beginning in my right hand stronger than usual. I reached for a sample plate, but the tremor intensified, sending it crashing to the floor. Couldn't you have stayed home? Amber hissed. You're ruining everything, as usual. Rebecca, just arriving, overheard. Amber, apologize to Mom right now. Why? So we can pretend she's not falling apart? Look at her. That night, I called Richard again. The Swiss account, I said without preamble. Is it still active? Yes, he replied. I've maintained it. It's grown substantially. I'll need access, immediately. The private jet landed in Zurich. I told my family I was seeking specialized treatment in New York, technically true, though the treatment I sought wasn't medical. Richard waited in a private lounge, more frail than I'd imagined. Cancer had hollowed his once handsome face. You look well, Eleanor, he said, rising slowly. Save the pleasantries, I replied. Show me the accounts. He nodded, unlocking a portfolio. The numbers were staggering, nearly $40 million accumulated over 40 years. Why, I asked. Why build this and never tell me? Would you have accepted it? After how I left. Thomas contacted me 3 years ago, Richard continued. Said he wanted to reconnect. The questions became increasingly focused on finances. And you told him about this account? Never. I may have been a terrible husband, but I'm not entirely without principles. Back in Connecticut, I called Martin Reynolds. I need you back, officially retired, but secretly restructuring everything. You found something in Switzerland? He asked. I found leverage. Over the next week, I implemented what Martin called the ghost structure, a complex reorganization that appeared to consolidate power while actually dispersing crucial assets into a new holding company controlled exclusively by me. I reclaimed old allies. Harold Chen, pushed into early retirement by Thomas, eagerly joined my shadow board. Maria Vasquez, whose acquisition offer Thomas had rudely dismissed, became a silent partner. Meanwhile, I cultivated my appearance of decline. I forgot appointments, asked Thomas to repeat explanations, appeared disoriented in meetings. With each mistake, I watched my children exchange glances, their trap closing around the prey that was actually the hunter. Jackson Monroe continued his investigation, uncovering more of Seth's predatory history and documenting Thomas's gambling debts. Most disturbing were emails between Thomas and a Chinese manufacturing conglomerate discussing the acquisition and dismantling of Wright Interiors. Amber burst into my study, unusually animated. Mom! Seth and I were thinking, what if we extended the honeymoon? There's this incredible private villa in Bora Bora. I smiled indulgently. Whatever makes you happy, sweetheart. We'd need to upgrade to the platinum package, she continued. It's only an extra $40,000. Consider it done, I said, watching her poorly concealed glee. I'll handle all the Bora Bora arrangements personally. After she left, I called my neurologist. I need those cognitive assessment results expedited and sent directly to my attorney. To the bride! Crystal glasses clinked at the rehearsal dinner. I smiled appropriately, though I'd been seated far from the main wedding party. Amber looked radiant, accepting congratulations with practiced grace. I watched her interact with Seth's family, particularly Diane, who'd assumed the role of mother of the bride, despite knowing Amber for only 6 months. Eleanor, aren't you proud? A distant cousin settled beside me, her voice carrying that increasingly familiar, sympathetic tone. Your baby girl getting married. Immensely, I replied, taking a calculated sip of water. Then, with carefully crafted confusion, I added, though I can't recall if we've finalized the table arrangements. Oh, I believe that was done weeks ago, she said, concerned. Was it? My memory isn't what it used to be. I gave a self-deprecating laugh that caused several nearby conversations to pause. The cousin patted my hand condescendingly. Don't worry about a thing. Everyone understands. I noticed Thomas watching with barely concealed satisfaction, calculating how to use it later. Rebecca, however, looked genuinely pained. After dinner, Amber approached with an envelope. Mom, about tomorrow's ceremony, we've made a small change to the program. Inside was the revised order of events. The traditional mother of the bride speech had been reassigned to Diane. We felt it would be less stressful for you, Amber explained, not meeting my eyes. Diane has experience with public speaking. How thoughtful, I said, my voice steady despite the deliberate humiliation. Though I'd prepared some remarks. You can still say something at the rehearsal brunch, she offered dismissively, where it's more intimate. Later, I overheard Seth whispering, the old lady's losing it. Perfect timing. Once we get back from Bora Bora, the lawyers take over. I slipped away unnoticed and returned home, where Jackson waited. Everything's set, he reported. Financial controls are in place. The ghost structure is active but invisible. Your Swiss funds have been transferred to the secure accounts. And the Bora Bora honeymoon arrangements? Fully cancelable by you alone, with the resort manager briefed to expect your call. I've confirmed all reservations are in your name since you're paying. As you instructed. I nodded, reviewing the extensive file he'd compiled, a comprehensive record of betrayal by my own children. What about Rebecca? I asked, still caught in the middle. Thomas has explicit photos of her with the client. He's threatened her marriage and professional reputation. I placed 3 envelopes in my purse for tomorrow, each bearing a child's name. Inside were identical statements. The price of loyalty isn't paid in money. The Newport estate gleamed under perfect blue skies, a setting purchased with my money and chosen without my input. I arrived early, watching staff arrange flowers that cost more than most people's monthly salaries. Mrs. Wright, the coordinator approached nervously. We weren't expecting you until later. I'm merely observing, I assured her. Don't mind me. The ceremony was flawless. Amber radiant, Seth attentive. I sat in the front row as protocol demanded, though I noticed the wedding photographer carefully angled shots to minimize my presence. Eleanor, you must be so happy, Diane gushed during the reception line. Though these events can be exhausting at our age differs by 20 years, Diane, I replied pleasantly. The photographer interrupted. Family photos on the terrace in 5 minutes. When I arrived, the photographer was arranging Seth's extended family. Perfect. Now just the younger generation, please. I stood waiting as various combinations of the bridal party were photographed. Amber approached, her smile tight. Mom, why don't you rest? These are just shots of our friends. We'll do some with you later. The dismissal was deliberate and public. Several guests averted their eyes, embarrassed on my behalf. Of course, I replied, retreating to a bench where Jackson, posing as a business associate, joined me. It's all documented, he murmured. Every slight, every manipulation. I nodded, watching Amber hold court among her fashionable friends. And the financial transfers? Complete. The ghost structure is now the legal majority owner of Wright Interiors. Thomas's access codes were quietly revoked an hour ago. During the reception, I was seated at a distant table with elderly relatives, safely removed from meaningful conversations. I played my part, appearing slightly confused when addressed directly. The moment that sealed their fate came during Amber's speech. Champagne glass raised, she thanked everyone profusely before adding almost as an afterthought, and my mother, for her generous financial support. The room fell uncomfortably silent at the dismissive tone. Rebecca approached my table later. Mom, that wasn't right, what Amber said. When you're ready to talk about what Thomas has over you, I'll be ready to listen, I told her. Monday morning, my house, 9 o'clock. As the celebration reached its peak, I approached the happy couple. I wanted to give you something special, I told them. Check your email. All the details for your Bora Bora honeymoon are there, the presidential villa, private beach, personal chef, everything arranged and paid in full. Amber's eyes lit with genuine excitement. Mom, that's incredible! I departed shortly after, pleading fatigue. In the car, I made the call I'd been rehearsing. Bora Bora Royal Resort? This is Eleanor Wright. I need to cancel a reservation. What do you mean, canceled? Amber's voice reached a pitch I hadn't heard since her teenage tantrums. She stood in my living room, still wearing yesterday's travel outfit, makeup smudged from frustrated tears. Seth paced behind her, his expression thunderous. We were at the check-in counter when they told us. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I regarded them calmly from my armchair. Almost as humiliating as being told the wedding photos are, just for the young people, I imagine. This is about photo arrangements? Seriously, Mom? No, Amber. This is about conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted medical manipulation, and plotting to have me declared mentally incompetent. The color drained from both their faces. I don't know what you're talking about. Seth recovered first. Amber, your mother is confused again. Am I? I removed a folder from beside my chair. Samuel Miller, that is your real name, isn't it, Seth? Or do you prefer Sam, as you did with Patricia Goldstein in Seattle before you emptied her bank accounts? He froze, eyes darting to the exit. As for you, Amber, I continued, I have documented evidence of your tampering with my medication. A felony offense, I might add. The doorbell rang. That will be Thomas and Rebecca. Right on time. My older children entered, Thomas looking irritated, Rebecca nervous. What's this emergency meeting about, Mother? Thomas demanded. Your meeting with Hanshin Global was canceled an hour ago, rather permanently, after they received documentation about your gambling debts and embezzlement from company accounts. Thomas staggered, as if physically struck. You can't. Oh, but I have. I gestured to the sofa. All of you, sit down. For months, you've conspired to have me removed from my company, a company I built from nothing while raising you alone, I said. Thanks to Jackson's surveillance team and Martin's financial expertise, we have recorded every conversation, tracked every transaction, and documented every step of your plan. The front door opened again as Martin Reynolds entered with my attorney. Everything is executed as instructed, Eleanor, Martin reported. The new corporate structure is now public record. Wright Interiors is now controlled by the Eleanor Wright Foundation, my attorney explained. Your mother retains majority voting rights. Your executive positions have been terminated, effective immediately. I distributed envelopes to each of my children. Thomas, You will enter treatment for gambling addiction and work under supervision for 5 years before any consideration of reinstatement. You will repay every dollar you stole. Rebecca, you were coerced, but still complicit. You'll retain your position, but under supervision and with mandatory ethics counseling. Amber and Seth, you face the most serious legal exposure. Seth, you have 24 hours to annul this marriage and leave the state, or I press charges for your prior frauds. Amber, you'll face the consequences of your choices without financial support for the first time in your life. Amber began crying in earnest. Mom, please. The medication tampering alone could result in criminal charges, I reminded her. Consider this mercy. Seth stood abruptly. This is insane. I'm leaving. You've confused love with entitlement for too long, I told my children quietly. That ends today. The silence in Wright Interior's executive suite was deafening as I entered for the first time in months. Employees watched wide-eyed as I made my way to the conference room, where the board of directors waited. Gentlemen, ladies, I greeted them calmly. I believe we have several pressing matters to address. Harold Chen, restored as CFO, distributed folders containing comprehensive documentation of Thomas's financial manipulations and the remediation plan. As you can see, the situation is serious but manageable, I explained. The diverted funds have been traced and recovery proceedings are underway. Where is Thomas? Asked Bernard Williams, our longest-serving board member. Addressing personal issues, I replied diplomatically. He will be returning in a different capacity after appropriate interventions. The restructuring passed with unanimous approval. By noon, new security protocols were implemented, access codes changed, and Thomas's personal effects packed from the executive office. Rebecca found me there later, looking shaken but resolute. Thomas discovered the affair 2 years ago, she began. It was brief, stupid, a moment of weakness during a business trip. He threatened to tell Stephen and release photos to the board unless I supported his decisions. And Amber's involvement? She's always been jealous of your relationship with me and Thomas. When Seth came along, she hesitated. He seemed to unlock something darker in her. Suddenly she was coordinating with Thomas, talking about expediting your retirement by having me declared incompetent. Yes? Her voice was barely audible. I should have warned you. You should have trusted me, I corrected gently. That evening, I visited Thomas at his apartment. He opened the door looking haggard, days of stubble darkening his jawline. Have you come to gloat? He asked bitterly. I've come to understand. When did the gambling start? After Melissa left, small bets at first, then bigger ones to chase the losses. And contacting your father? I was desperate. The debts kept growing. The loan sharks were making threats. Why not come to me? I asked. The question that had haunted me for months. And admit failure? To Eleanor Wright, who never fails at anything? His laugh was hollow. Besides, you were getting older, starting to shake. It seemed convenient. Meanwhile, across town, Amber faced her own reckoning. Seth had departed that morning, taking the BMW I'd gifted them, and leaving behind only a terse note about irreconcilable family complications. She arrived at my door near midnight, mascara streaked down her cheeks. He's gone, she said simply. I know. I stepped aside to let her enter. Jackson confirmed he crossed into New York State 3 hours ago. I handed her a printed rental agreement for a modest apartment across town, along with information about an entry-level position at a local gallery. 3 months' rent paid. After that, you're on your own. She stared at the papers. Why help me at all after what I did? Because you're my daughter, I said simply. And everyone deserves one chance at redemption, but only one. The Wright Interiors Foundation announces its inaugural grants program for women entrepreneurs over 50, I read from the podium, my voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. 6 months had passed since the wedding disaster, and this press conference marked both a corporate rebirth and a personal statement. Camera flashes punctuated the room as business reporters documented this unexpected pivot. In the front row sat Rebecca, now serving effectively as COO under the new structure. Her path to redemption had been the straightest genuine remorse translated into dedicated work-rebuilding company systems and her own integrity. After the announcement, I retreated to my office, where Jackson Monroe waited with his final report. Thomas has completed 3 months of intensive treatment, he informed me. His therapist reports genuine progress. He's attending Gamblers Anonymous daily and working consistently in the purchasing department. And Amber? Struggling, but persisting. She's made every rent payment since your initial support ended. The gallery position is minimum wage, but her supervisor reports she shows up on time and works diligently. Any contact with Seth? None since he crossed into Canada 2 months ago. Our sources suggest he's attempting to establish a new identity in Vancouver. That evening, I visited the small gallery where Amber worked. I watched through the window as she patiently explained a local artist's work to an elderly couple. Her designer clothes replaced by simple black pants and a button-down shirt. I entered as the couple departed, surprising her mid-cleanup. "Mom!" Her voice held wariness rather than hostility, progress of a sort. "The Morrison exhibition is impressive," I commented, examining a landscape. "You came to see art?" Her skepticism was warranted. "I came to see you, actually. Professional curiosity. Jackson says you haven't missed a day of work." "You're still having me watched?" She sounded more resigned than angry. "Monitored," I corrected. "There's a difference." Amber finished closing the register before responding. "I don't have a choice but to work. My credit is ruined, my friends disappeared when the money did, and my husband was apparently a professional con artist." "All true," I acknowledged. "How does that feel?" She laughed bitterly. "Terrible, humiliating, and—" She paused, strangely clarifying. "Clarifying how?" "I've never earned anything myself before," she admitted. "Not really. Last week I sold a painting to that couple, a $5,000 commission. My commission was small, but I made that sale happen. Me, not your money or connections." I nodded, recognizing the fragile pride in her voice. "I'm having dinner at that cafe across the street," I said. "You're welcome to join me when you finish here." "Why would you want to have dinner with me after what I did?" "Because healing has to start somewhere. And because I've never actually known who you are without the trappings of wealth." As we parted, she hesitated before asking, "Will we ever be okay? As a family?" "That depends on all of us," I replied. "Trust isn't restored through words or time. Only consistent actions rebuild what's broken." "The test results are excellent," Dr. Patel said, reviewing my neurological evaluation. "The Parkinson's is progressing much more slowly than initially feared. Your quick return to proper medication minimized the damage from those months of tampering." I nodded, relieved. "And long-term prognosis? With continued treatment, you should maintain good functionality for many years." 1 year had passed since the wedding. Thomas, now in his first year of recovery, worked diligently in a mid-level position. Rebecca had flourished once free from blackmail, becoming my right hand in the company. Amber, after facing serious legal consequences that I'd helped mitigate, was slowly building a legitimate career at the art gallery. That evening, I welcomed my children to my home for a private dinner, our first gathering without tension in years. Thomas arrived with his NA sobriety chip, marking 1 year clean. Rebecca brought family photos for the new memorial we'd created for Richard in the garden. Amber came with a small, wrapped package. Inside was a silver bracelet nearly identical to one Richard had given me for our 5th anniversary lost decades ago, during our frantic move after his abandonment. "It's not the same one," Amber said quickly, "but when I saw it, I remembered you wearing it in old photographs." The thoughtfulness spoke volumes about her growth. "I've been thinking about what happened," Thomas said as we moved to the living room for coffee. "About why we all made the choices we did. We never properly discussed it," he continued. "I've talked about my actions in recovery meetings, but not with the people I hurt most directly. I was desperate because of gambling debts, yes, but there was something deeper, a belief that I deserved success without earning it, that the right name entitled me to wealth and power." "I felt that too," Amber admitted quietly. "Like the company owed me a lifestyle, even though I contributed nothing to it." Rebecca studied her hands. "I was different. I worked hard, proved myself, but I was too afraid of losing everything to stand against what I knew was wrong." I listened as my children articulated the dysfunctions that had nearly destroyed our family. "And me?" I asked finally. "What was my role in creating this situation?" They exchanged surprised glances. "You were always so capable," Rebecca ventured. "So completely in control. It created a standard that felt impossible to meet." "You survived being abandoned with 3 kids by becoming superhuman," Amber said. "I always felt I couldn't possibly measure up, so why try at all?" I absorbed their perspectives, recognizing truth in each. "We've all contributed to what happened," I acknowledged, "and we all have roles in what happens next." 2 years after Amber's ill-fated wedding, I stood at the podium in Right Interior's newly renovated headquarters, addressing a crowd of employees, industry colleagues, and press. Today marks not just the 40th anniversary of Right Interiors, but a renewal of our founding principles, I began, my voice strong despite the milestone birthday I'd celebrated just weeks before. At 77, I'd found an unexpected new chapter, rather than the quiet retirement once planned. 4 decades ago, I founded this company as a recently abandoned mother of 3 with more determination than resources. Today, we launch the Eleanor Wright Mentorship Initiative, pairing experienced professionals with emerging talent regardless of age or background. In the front row sat Thomas, now managing our Western regional operations after 18 months of consistent performance. Beside him was Rebecca, officially named President of Operations last quarter. And, somewhat surprisingly, Amber stood in the back, having requested no special treatment despite our repaired relationship. Experience isn't obsolescence, I continued. It's our greatest untapped resource in business and in life. Later, I welcomed my children to my home for a quiet celebration. Thomas arrived with his 2-year sobriety chip. Rebecca brought champagne for everyone except Thomas, who had sparkling cider. Amber came directly from work at the gallery, where she'd recently been promoted to assistant curator. As evening fell, we moved to the garden where a small marble bench commemorated Richard, not as the perfect husband or father he never was, but as the flawed man whose actions had shaped all our lives. To new beginnings, I offered, raising my glass under the summer stars, and to hard-earned wisdom. My children raised their glasses in response, our reflection in the garden pond showing 4 figures distinct but connected, separate but part of a whole. The Wright family had imploded spectacularly. We had hurt each other in ways that could never be fully undone. But from those ruins, something authentic had emerged, a family built on truth rather than appearance, on earned respect rather than obligation. I touched the silver bracelet on my wrist, not the original, but perhaps more meaningful for being chosen with such care by a daughter who had finally learned to see beyond herself. Some treasures are lost forever, others are replaced by something different but equally valuable, and some, like the wisdom earned through suffering, could never have been gained any other way. The price of loyalty, it turned out, wasn't measured in money after all. It was paid in truth, in difficult choices, and in the courage to begin again after everything falls apart. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.